speaker is Dr. Joseph Rella. He has taught in the Comstock School District since 1994. He's been superintendent since 2010. Prior to that, he was deputy superintendent, high school principal, director of humanities, and a music teacher at Comstock. He's also taught in Farmingdale and Brooklyn. Dr. Rella has been in education for 32 years. He received a master's degree in music education from Teachers College, Columbia University, and a doctorate in educational leadership and policy studies from Hofstra University. He and his wife Jackie live in Port Jefferson Station and have 4 sons and 6 grandchildren, with a 7th on the way in December. Congratulations. Dr. Joe Rella.
I'd first like to thank you for inviting me, and I'm honored to be part of this panel. When we look at public education in New York State over the last year, it's clear that the landscape has changed dramatically. The cause of this change, I believe, is solely because of the parent-led opt-out. And by the way, it's no longer a movement, at least there on Long Island and here in Suffolk County. It's the status quo now.
That's right.
That famous quote attributed to Gandhi reflects the history of what occurred. First they ignored you, then they ridiculed you, then they fought with you, then you won. The governor's own words regarding opting out bear witness to that victory. This is from the New York Times, August 20th edition. Quote, "At the end of the day, parents are in charge and parents make the decision." That's the first time I've agreed 100% with the governor. Speaking of the governor, it's indescribable what happened yesterday. But I will tell you this, I believe that his actions are going to so inflame the parents of Long Island and New York State that we're going to see a galactic opt-out come this spring. I know and respect and love Jeanette Duderman, and I believe she's the mother of the opt-out movement here on Long Island, but I have to say to her, and I'll say to you publicly, that the governor has done more for the opt-out movement than even Jeanette could do. All right, back to Gandhi for a second. First they did this, then they did that, and they did something else. Who's the they? Well, I'm going to borrow a term from the 60s, which I'm very comfortable with. You know I don't look it. Let's call them the establishment. And who are that? Who's that establishment? Well, first of all, it's the financial sector, the federal and state government, many politicians, the media, billionaire elites. That's the establishment. Now, a generation ago, public and private schools existed side by side, in peace and harmony. But funding for public schools was more equitable. If we go back one generation, the 1990-91 school year, the New York State share of budget expenditures was 54%. Taxpayers were responsible for 46 cents on the dollar. Last year, 28%. Taxpayers responsible for 72 cents. You want to know what government or any organization believes? Look at their budget. It was more equitable, though, because it was almost universally recognized that strong public schools were the bedrock of democracy. That Horace Mann quote, greatest discovery. Democracy and an educated citizenry go hand in hand. Public education is the great equalizer. But America's founders also believed it was insurance against the loss of liberty, the overreach of government. Sounds familiar. Thomas Jefferson, quote, "Every government degenerates when trusted to the rulers of the people alone. The people themselves, therefore, are its only safe depositories. And to render them safe, Their minds must be improved to a certain degree. Beyond preparing children to take their place as intelligent, informed citizens, public education and public schools are an essential part of our society and an integral part of every community. That wonderful educator, Carol Burris, who recently retired, but she's not gone, thank God. Here's her quote. "There is a compact that exists between a community and its public school. It is a promise that the school will teach every child that passes through its doors. Poor children, affluent children, children with disabilities, and children who show great academic promise. The common public school is required to teach the easy to teach and the difficult to teach. The common public school is there for the student with strong parent advocates and for the child who is, for all practical purposes, alone. Charters and private schools are not designed to serve all students. They are designed to serve students who are more like each other than not. Although there may be some diversity, those who are truly different either never apply, are never accepted, or are canceled out." So what changed? What changed in terms of the status of public schools in the community? And the first major factor of that change was the financial sector. Let me give you just a couple of statistics. 30 years ago, the financial sector claimed about 10% of all U.S. corporate profits. In 2001, right before the crash, they were claiming 46% of all U.S. corporate profits. Today, it's close to 40%. And that just isn't the result of other industries tanking, so they got more of the profit share. If you look at the GDP, and that's the monetary value, the gross domestic product, the monetary value of all goods and services produced in a country in a given period of time, let's say a year. The GDP between 1980 and 2006 increased 5 times. Pretty good. Financial sector profits over that same period increased 16 times. Today, J.P. Morgan, Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley control 64% of the GDP. We have also seen, as a result of this, the rise of what's called financialization. And that's the increase in the influence of financial markets on different areas of our society. The economy being the first, and that's proper, but also other institutions of society, including the government. And by extension, education, or an arm of the government. We have private industry, private companies controlling public policy, setting public policy. How's that working out? The decisions we have been subjected to, this will explain though, because the decisions we've been subjected to have little, if anything, to do with education. They are financial decisions. Public schools don't generate profits for their investors, at least not the monetary kind. Charter schools are a very profitable vehicle for big money investors, and they've been investing big money in them. It was calculated that an investor in a charter school could realize 100% return on their investment in 7 years. Outside of the mafia, we ain't going to get that kind of return. From their perspective, the attack on public education is simply a business decision to eliminate the competition, us. Charter schools need customers. So our governor, in his plan, in his evaluation plan, APPR, part of that has to do with how we're going to rank teachers, and it's called stack ranking or forced ranking. You force the curve on the group. Those ends, the tails, are going to be small. But under that system, 7% of teachers must be designated as ineffective. You say, why would somebody do such a thing? Well, that's going to provide the raw material to have schools fail. And in short order, they'll be in receivership. And for receivership, read, they'll be handed over to charter schools. The governor started the fire And now his charter school friends are first online at the fire sale. That's exactly what's going on. This has not been lost, though, on the federal prosecutor. Because one of the things he's currently investigating is the connection between the governor's forced ranking, which is going to increase the supply of schools for the charter schools to take over, and the charter industry itself, coincidentally, being a large contributor to the governor's political campaigns. Now, lest you think this is only in New York. New York is always first in these things, I believe. Being a New Yorker, I believe we do it best, or worst, whichever way you'd like to look at it. But our current state education commissioner came to us from the Hillsborough County, Florida school district. 200,000 students. It's a county, big. While she was superintendent, the district applied and won a $100 million grant from the Gates Foundation. It was called Empowering Effective Teachers. I can't even say it, it's so bad. Empowering Effective Teachers Grant. It was $10 million a year for 10 years. The original proposal submitted by the district called for the district to fire 5% of the teachers each year for poor performance. Again, that forced ranking. That would amount to more than 700 teachers in their district. The thinking was they'd be replaced by teachers who earned entry-level wages. That's the first savings. And take that money now and use it to pay bonuses for high-performing teachers. What was the high performance based on? This is a similar evaluation system, value-added model. So what happened as a result of this? Sounds like a great plan. Nothing improved. Gates didn't make the last $10 million payment. Mary Ellen Elliott got fired and came to New York. And what's one of the things she's suggesting here? We should talk about merit bonuses for teachers. Just saying. All right, second factor that's taken the public schools off that wonderful status that they've enjoyed forever is what I want to call the culture of greed. Our society has moved towards a culture that's steeped in greed and corrupt self-interest. Take a look at what's been happening in Albany. The federal prosecutor is working overtime. This past year, he told the press that people were lining up seeking immunity in exchange for providing information to his ongoing corruption investigation. It's a culture of hooray for me and the heck with everybody else. There are kids here. And that's precisely the reason, that culture of self-interest is precisely the reason the public schools are under such severe attack. Because we represent the categorical opposite of that point of view. We are about all children. Going back to our friends, the Maasai people of East Africa, when they greet each other, they ask, and how are the children? Are all of them well? Not how are your children? No, all children. This culture of greed and self-centeredness has led to the dividing of society into us and them. What we have been experiencing is that the establishment is the us, and we are most certainly the them. If we look at anyone as them, we will treat them in a different way, sometimes a radically different way than if we look at them as one of us, won't we? Now, there have been a number of mantras that we've been subjected to, ad infinitum, ad nauseam. Public education's broken. It's a failure. All this without support, by the way. If we only had effective teachers, our schools would be successful. That report from Florida, that grant report, stated, quote, a teacher's effectiveness has more impact on student learning than any other factor under the control of school systems, including class size, school size, and quality of after-school programs. What's missing? What about other factors? Factors external to the classroom. Factors outside of the control of the school system. The American Statistical Association notes that the teacher influence accounts for between 1% and 14% in the variability of test scores, which means 86 to 99% of a student's test score is out of the teacher's control. In the state's 2015 Failing Schools report, prepared under the direction of the governor, 178 schools were identified statewide. Although these students are from different areas of the state, they share one thing in common. The school district where these schools are located have, and this is a weighted average, over 75% of their students on free or reduced lunch. Even in the face of his own report, the governor is still blaming teachers. Remember, under his forced ranking system, 7% will be fired each year. Clearly, this is not an education problem, it's a poverty problem. Poverty cannot be fixed with a slogan or a television commercial. Real jobs are not created with those methods. Poverty and jobs require real commitment, real work. Another mantra is the Common Core initiative will make students college and career ready. Now, no research has been produced to support this claim. None. On the contrary, it's been a dismal failure. Anecdotally, it's been a dismal failure everywhere it's been introduced. Let's look at New York. Grades 3 to 8. 3 years of massive failure, with about 70% of the students failing ELA and math. And when you take a look at students with special needs and ESL students, you're looking at 95% failure or more. So now we're going to bring this roadshow to the high school. And last year, the Common Core algebra readings was given for the first time. 74% of the students in the state failed. Well, look, we must be just very dumb in New York. That's the only thing I can conclude. So let's look at the SAT scores from last year. Nationwide, in math, it's the lowest score since 1999. In reading, it's the lowest scores ever recorded. Proficiency is no longer an academic consideration. It is totally a political consideration. Remember, the proficiency rate is set to fulfill the goals of the political agenda. And if the agenda is public schools are failing, then we set the proficiency scores to prove that. And that's exactly what's been going on. Nothing more, nothing less. Don't spend any more dollars on public education. You're throwing good money after bad. But every dollar spent on charter schools is an investment in our children's future. Okay. No support. Remember who controls the media. The billionaire elites. Somebody said to me, "You're a conspiracy theorist." I said, "No, I'm not. Conspiracies happen in secret. This is right in my face." I think you'll agree, though, it's pretty tough being a them to their us. Now, if we as Americans still believe that public education is a foundation of our democracy for all children, and that we must have a voice in the decisions that our government makes, then we must remain united. We cannot allow ourselves to become the us and create a them, some other them. Whether that's poor kids, whether that's ESL kids, whether that's special needs kids, we can't repeat what we've been subjected to on anyone else. And that is precisely the strategy that's been used by the parent opt-out. It's made it so effective because it's about all children. It crosses all demographics, political, socioeconomic, ethnic, religious. Further, the motivation of parents was and is to save a generation of children, all children, from this horrible corporate experiment and to restore the rich education that is their right as Americans, and education in the arts, the sciences, the humanities, athletics, and education filled, as you saw, with wonder and discovery, excitement, challenges, and fun. An education that will help them to take their place as intelligent, involved citizens in our great country. The establishment has not listened to us because we are not part of the equation. Parents and educators are not. We are, in fact, obstacles to their profit model. We are getting in the way of their plan. We must continue to get in their way. This is a quote from Diane Ravitch, who should have been on that commission. One of the people, Carol and a bunch of others, David, Michael. Parents have been ignored throughout this charade of the governor flexing his political muscle. They will have a chance to be heard next spring when the tests are administered more students will opt out. More than the 220,000 who refused to test in 2015. Will it be 300,000? Will it be 400,000? I have a pool going. My number's 500,000 at this point. This is the parents' only means to be heard. They will be heard, she says. I saw a quote from a newspaper editor from Kansas who lived about 75 years ago, William Allen White. And it's why we're doing what we're doing. It explains who we are. Quote, "The most precious gift God has given to this land is not its riches of soil and forest and land, but the divine dissatisfaction planted deeply in the hearts of the American people. Americans cannot remain silent when they believe something is wrong. It's in our DNA. We must speak out." Now, I want to borrow a phrase from my colleague David. When they threaten sanctions for opting out, let them know. When they tell us it's unethical for educators to honor your decisions about your children, let them know. When children are punished for not taking tests, let them know. When we are patronized with the next round of non-listening tours, let them know. When we are told that parents will love the Common Core if we just explain it to them properly, let them know. When the next Reform Commission, which has been announced, is packed with their cronies, let them know. When they change the actors without changing the script of the play, let them know. As we go through this school year, every chance we get, let them know. And most especially at testing time, let them know.